So the Resident Evil 4 demo came out the other day, and I've played it a little bit. To those who may or may not know, the Resident Evil franchise is a big deal to me. The original GameCube remake was not only my first entry in the franchise, but also the first video I ever made on my channel nearly 3 years ago at this point, and I've gone out of my way to air some of my complaints about some of the newer games in the series since then. I don't dislike the new games, I just kind of find them to be a little bit underwhelming. Resident Evil 2 Remake is currently my favorite modern Resident Evil title by 1,000 miles. So I obviously had some reasonable concerns when they actually announced that they were remaking Resident Evil 4, but after seeing the direction that they were going in, which is like a more spooky take on the Resident Evil 4 aesthetic, I was actually pretty impressed. I've always believed that the only way to remake something that could never be remade was simply to take a different angle on it. It would, at the very least, give a reason for that remake to exist, no matter how poor the actual quality of the thing would be. Resident Evil 4 Original is a game that I do believe holds up pretty well, almost to the point where a remake does seem astronomically dumb, but if I'm trying to look objectively at it, there are things about it that have not aged well. The menu system is a little jank, the controls are obviously clunky, even though I like tank controls, you can fucking suck my dick, among other things. And I would even go as far as to say that it's arguable that Dead Space is just a better Resident Evil 4. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but you could argue it. But I'm just gonna get right to the point. The Resident Evil 4 remake, at this point in time, has currently shattered all expectations. The demo that you can play right now is essentially a carbon copy of the original game's demo back from the day, which, if you ask me, is the perfect way to do it. It starts pretty much right where the actual game starts and ends exactly at the end of the first village sequence.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
And this demo is... oh man, it's magical. There really is no other way to explain it. Unlike the Dead Space remake that came out earlier this year, which is, in my opinion, the most as-you-remember-it game ever made, where at times you almost forget that you're even playing a remake, this game definitely feels different. But it has an identical soul. It just feels like the game that you played back in 2005, but grown up. It's the same snarky, slightly bizarre teenager that you were friends with back in high school, but now he's 30 and he's still the same person that you remember, but now he's got a job and he's got to worry about bills. Everything in this game's visual design is masterful. The RE engine might be the current best game on the market today, apart from maybe Unreal 5. The graphical fidelity that not only appears on the screen, but the stuff that you can manage behind the scenes is practically unprecedented and really goes to show the versatile nature of the engine. But the results that you get from it are seriously what you would expect from a next-gen game. The volumetric lighting, the soft shadows, and even the reasonably intensive ray tracing all come together to make a product that is completely encompassing with its atmosphere. The changes that they've made to the game's intro is also very welcomed. I love that the original Resident Evil remake set a precedence for the entire franchise when it comes to remakes, as every single one of them has essentially been a spin on that original remake's selling point, where it's the same game, but expanded upon and unfolded out to be different than you remember it. Almost. The opening moments are such more intense due to the slow build and the new locations that they added, but it feels like an excellent showcasing for the game's new shooting mechanics and movement. But the real selling point of the demo and why everybody here is even bothering to play it is to get a feel of that first village section. And what the Resident Evil 4 remake does so perfectly at this point is make the game new, refreshing, but most importantly, difficult again. You may have beaten the original more times than you can count, but you'll realize at the village section that the game isn't the same game anymore. All of the new movement and shooting mechanics mean that you can't rely on muscle memory, and you have to relearn the game now. And the first section is difficult again for many of us for the first time in nearly 18 years, and I think that's pretty incredible. The music is pitch perfect, making your blood boil the entire time, and the potential of your knife breaking makes it even more panic-inducing, especially with the chainsaw buddy being even more intense this time around. You'll die plenty of times, but when you do finally hear that bell signaling that you've beaten the demo, you immediately want to redo it and do it better the next time. A sign of a good Resident Evil game, at least in my opinion, is that when you do restart it and have to do the whole thing again, it doesn't feel like a slog. You know where everything is, and yet it's still fun to go through it. Sure, the first house leading up to the first encounter is something that I kinda do wish you could skip, but as far as like speedrunning goes, I honestly don't mind it. I still enjoy every single playthrough nearly the entire way. If the game can keep up this level of spooky and yet still jovial playfulness with Leon as the central balancing act, then what we have here is the fan favorite of the entire franchise. Again.